I arrived at the family reunion with my twins. Mom muttered, "This was supposed to be a special day. Nobody invited you." My son tugged my sleeve and whispered, "Mommy, let's go home." We left quietly. By evening, she discovered the trust papers on her table and finally understood what she'd thrown away. The parking lot was full when I pulled up to the lakeside pavilion. Through the windshield, I could see colorful balloons tied to the picnic tables and hear music drifting across the water. My 6-year-old twins, Marcus and Sophia, pressed their faces against the back windows. "Is that where Grandma is?" Sophia asked. "Sweetie, the whole family's here today." I hadn't received an invitation. My sister Jennifer had posted photos on social media all week. Planning, decorations, catered food being delivered. Not once had anyone mentioned it to me. But I drove 3 hours anyway because my children deserved to know their family. We walked across the grass toward the pavilion. I wore a simple sundress, nothing fancy. The twins held my hands, excited and nervous. They'd only met most of these relatives a handful of times. My mother saw us first. She stood near the dessert table talking to my Aunt Patricia. Her smile disappeared the moment our eyes met. She set down her plate and walked toward us with quick, deliberate steps. "Elizabeth," she said, her voice tight. "This was supposed to be a special day." Around us, conversations quieted. My Uncle Robert stopped mid-sentence. Jennifer turned from the grill, spatula in hand. Cousins I hadn't seen in years suddenly found their phones very interesting. "I know," I said calmly. "The twins wanted to see everyone. Nobody invited you." Mom's words carried across the pavilion. "This is for family who actually show up when it matters." Marcus tugged my sleeve. His brown eyes filled with tears. "Mommy, let's go home." Sophia gripped my other hand tighter. At 6 years old, they understood rejection perfectly well. "You're right," I said to my mother. "We should go." I turned the twins around and walked back to the car. Nobody called after us. Nobody said goodbye. Through the rearview mirror, I watched my mother return to the pavilion, already laughing about something with Patricia. The drive home was quiet. Sophia fell asleep 20 minutes in. Marcus stared out the window, not speaking. I'd grown used to my family's coldness over the years, but watching my children experience it felt different. My relationship with my mother had fractured 7 years ago when I married Thomas against her wishes. He wasn't wealthy, she'd said. He didn't come from the right background. He was a high school teacher, for God's sake, not a doctor or lawyer. When I got pregnant 6 months after the wedding, she called it throwing my life away. Thomas died when the twins were 2. A drunk driver ran a red light on his way home from parent-teacher conferences. The settlement money sat untouched in an account I couldn't bring myself to look at. My mother attended the funeral but left immediately after, uncomfortable with grief she couldn't control or understand. Since then I'd become the family ghost. Present in old photos, absent from current celebrations. My sister got the attention, the support, the approval. Jennifer married a surgeon, lived in the right neighborhood, said the right things. I lived in Thomas's old house, worked as a freelance graphic designer, and apparently didn't matter anymore. What my mother didn't know was that my grandmother, her own mother, felt differently. Grandma Helen died 18 months ago at 93. Sharp-minded until the end, she watched my mother's treatment of me with increasing disapproval. In her final year, she called me to her house regularly. We drank tea and talked while she shared stories about her own difficult relationship with her mother-in-law. "Your mother thinks money and status equal worth," Grandma Helen said during one visit. I tried to teach her differently, but some lessons don't stick. He squeezed my hand. "You remind me of your grandfather. He never cared what people thought either." 3 weeks before she passed, Grandma Helen asked me to drive her to her lawyer's office. I sat in the waiting room while they met privately. She emerged 2 hours later, tired but satisfied. "I've done something that will either teach your mother an important lesson or prove she's beyond learning," she told me in the car. "Either way, you'll be taken care of." I hadn't understood then. The funeral was a blur of relatives I barely knew, all of them eyeing each other with the particular tension that accompanies significant estates. My mother was in her element, playing the devoted daughter, crying theatrically while checking her phone between eulogies. The will reading happened 2 weeks later. I attended because the lawyer specifically requested my presence, though my mother tried to convince me it wasn't necessary. The conference room was packed with relatives, everyone pretending they weren't calculating their share. Grandma Helen's estate was worth $14 million. Property, investments, stocks, and the family business she built with my grandfather. Everyone expected it to be divided among her 3 children, with my mother receiving the largest share as the eldest. Instead, the lawyer read out terms that made my aunt gasp and my uncle walk out. Grandma Helen had established an irrevocable trust with me as the sole trustee. I controlled every dollar, every decision, every distribution. My mother, her siblings, and their families would receive monthly allowances, with me having complete discretion to adjust or terminate payments based on their behavior and circumstances. The document was explicit about the reasoning. Grandma Helen had witnessed years of my mother's cruelty toward me and wanted to ensure I had the power to protect myself and my children. She also included a letter, read aloud by the lawyer, explaining that she hoped this arrangement would teach her children the value of treating family with respect rather than as competition. My mother was furious but legally powerless. The trust was airtight, reviewed by 3 different law firms. She argued with the lawyer, then called me repeatedly, alternating between rage and fake sweetness. I changed my number after the 100th call. For 18 months I managed the trust quietly. My mother received her monthly payment of $12,000, the same as her siblings. It covered her mortgage, her car payment, her country club dues. She always assumed it came automatically from the bank, never questioning the mechanism behind it. I never told her I controlled it. I never used that power to hurt or manipulate her. I simply continued the payments month after month, hoping she might eventually realize that family meant more than appearances. But today, watching my children's faces as we were dismissed from the reunion, something in me shifted. After putting the twins to bed that evening, I drove back to my mother's house. She lived 40 minutes away in a gated community where every lawn looked identical. Her white SUV sat in the driveway, still covered with dust from the drive back from the pavilion. I left the manila envelope on her kitchen table. I still had a key from years ago, from before everything fell apart. The house was empty. She was probably still at Jennifer's, celebrating the successful family gathering that hadn't included us. Inside the envelope were copies of the trust documents. Every page showed my name as trustee. Every clause granted me complete control. Every distribution record listed the monthly payments that had quietly funded her lifestyle for a year and a half. I'd also included a letter explaining that this month's payment would be the last unless she could demonstrate that she understood what treating family with basic respect actually meant. I didn't write it with anger. I wrote it with the exhausted clarity of someone who had finally realized that hoping for change wasn't the same as requiring it. My phone rang at 9:30 that night. Mom's number flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. She called 6 more times over the next hour. Then Jennifer called. Then Uncle Robert. Then Aunt Patricia. I turned off my phone and sat with a cup of tea, the same kind Grandma Helen used to make. The next morning there were 43 missed calls and 17 voicemail messages. I listened to the first 3. Mom's voice progressed from shocked to angry to something approaching panic. The 4th message was different. Quiet, almost confused. Elizabeth, I found the papers. I need to talk to you. Please call me back. I didn't call back that day. Or the next. On the 3rd day she showed up at my house. I watched through the window as she sat in her car for 10 minutes, gathering courage. When she finally knocked, her makeup was smudged as if she'd been crying. Can we talk? She asked. The twins are doing homework, I said. This isn't a good time. I read everything. The lawyer's notes, your grandmother's letter. All of it. She twisted her hands together. I didn't know about the trust, about you controlling everything. The payments just appeared in my account every month. I know you didn't know. That wasn't the point. Then what was the point? Her voice cracked slightly. Humiliating me. Punishing me. The point was seeing if you'd treat me with basic decency without needing a financial reason to do it. Kept my voice level. You failed. She stared at me and for the first time in years actually seemed to see me. Not the disappointing daughter, the embarrassing widow, or the uninvited guest. Just me. I was cruel to you today, she said quietly. In front of your children. In front of everyone. You've been cruel to me for 7 years, Mom. Today was just the first time it cost you something. What happens now? I thought about Grandma Helen, about Thomas, about my children sleeping peacefully upstairs because I had finally stopped pretending that ignoring mistreatment was the same as family loyalty. Now you have a choice, I said. You can decide that money matters more than your daughter and grandchildren, keep the attitude, lose the support. Or you can figure out what kind of grandmother you want Marcus and Sophia to remember. I want to fix this. Wanting isn't the same as doing, Mom. Grandma Helen gave me this control because she knew words without action meant nothing in this family. I opened the door wider. But if you actually mean it, you can start by coming to dinner on Sunday. Not because of the trust, not because you need something, just because we're your family. She nodded slowly, tears running down her cheeks. Real ones this time, not the theatrical kind from Grandma Helen's funeral. Sunday, she repeated. What time? 5 o'clock. The twins eat early. She left without saying anything else. I watched her car pull away, unsure if she'd actually show up. But I'd done what Grandma Helen had trusted me to do. I'd given her the chance to choose correctly. Sunday afternoon I made pot roast, Thomas's favorite recipe. The twins set the table, excited that Grandma might actually come this time. 4:59 came and went. The twins' faces fell. Then at 5:03 the doorbell rang. Mom stood on the porch holding a bakery box and looking nervous. I didn't know what to bring, she said. So I got cookies, the ones with the sprinkles Sophia likes. Marcus and Sophia appeared behind me, cautious but hopeful. Mom knelt down to their level, her expensive skirt touching my porch floor. I'm sorry about the reunion, she said to them directly. Grandma was wrong, very wrong. You two are always invited, always wanted. I'm going to do better. Sophia looked at me for permission. I nodded slightly. She reached out and hugged her grandmother, and Marcus followed. Mom closed her eyes, holding them like she was afraid they might disappear. We ate dinner together that night. Conversation was awkward at first. Years of damage don't erase easily. But Mom asked the twins about school, really listening to their answers. She wanted to know about Marcus's science project on volcanoes and Sophia's reading level. She complimented the pot roast without mentioning calories or carbs, even taking a second helping. She asked about my work, my current design projects, my clients, my days, as if my answers actually mattered to her. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't 7 years of hurt magically healed. But it was a start. The next month I approved her trust distribution. And the month after that. Not because she'd kissed up to me, begged, or played games, but because she kept showing up. To dinners, to the twins' soccer games, to quiet afternoons where we slowly rebuilt something that resembled a relationship. Grandma Helen had known exactly what she was doing. The trust wasn't punishment. It was a mirror, forcing my mother to see what she'd become and choose whether to stay that way. 6 months after the reunion, Mom called me. Jennifer's planning a birthday party for her daughter, she said. I told her we're all coming. You, me, the twins. As a family. Will I get an invitation this time? I asked. You shouldn't need one, Mom said. You're family. You've always been family. I just forgot what that meant. I thought about that day at the pavilion, about Marcus tugging my sleeve, about Sophia's confused hurt. About the envelope I'd left on the table and the choice it had forced. We'll be there, I said. Because Grandma Helen had been right. Some lessons can't be taught with words. Sometimes power has to shift before people understand what they've been taking for granted. And sometimes the quietest person in the family is actually the one holding everything together. The trust would remain in my control for the rest of my life. But the real inheritance wasn't money. It was the knowledge that I didn't have to accept disrespect, even from family. Especially from family. Grandma Helen had given me more than financial security. She'd given me permission to require better. The text had arrived 3 days before Oliver's 8th birthday party. My sister Amanda's message was brief. Sorry, things are really tight financially right now. We can't make it to the party. Tell Oliver we love him and we'll celebrate another time. I stared at the message for a long moment. Amanda lived 40 minutes away. The party was at our house, just cake and games with 10 neighborhood kids. There was no admission fee, no gift requirement. Just family showing up for a child's birthday. But I texted back, no problem. Oliver will understand. Hope things get better soon. The party went well despite their absence. Oliver kept asking when his cousins were coming. Amanda's twins, Jake and Sophie, were 9 years old and Oliver adored them. He'd even made them special goodie bags with extra candy. Maybe they got stuck in traffic, he said hopefully, watching the door. I hugged him and distracted him with cake, but I saw the disappointment in his eyes when we sang happy birthday and his cousin's chairs stayed empty. The next morning, Sunday, Oliver came running into the kitchen with my phone. He'd been playing a game while I made breakfast. "Mom, why are Jake and Sophie at Disney?" he asked, confused. "I thought Aunt Amanda said they didn't have money." My stomach dropped. I took the phone. Amanda's Instagram showed a photo posted 2 hours earlier, her whole family wearing matching Disney shirts, standing in front of Cinderella's castle. The caption read, "Nothing like a spontaneous Magic Kingdom day. Best family ever." The post was from yesterday, Saturday, Oliver's birthday. While we'd been singing to him and he'd been watching the door, Amanda's family had been riding Space Mountain. "I don't understand," Oliver said, eyes filling with tears. "Did they forget about me?" I knelt down and pulled him close. "Sometimes adults make bad choices, buddy. It's not about you. You're wonderful and your birthday was perfect." But he cried anyway, the kind of hurt that comes from realizing someone chose something else over you. I held him and felt something shift inside me. Not anger exactly. Just clarity. The kind that comes when you finally see a situation for what it really is. After Oliver went to play with his new toys, I sat down at my laptop. I logged into my financial management system and opened the automatic payments. There were more than I'd realized once I listed them out. Disney annual passes for Amanda's family, $1,500 per person. 4 passes. $6,000 per year. Renewed automatically each March for the past 4 years. Amanda's car payment, $850 a month. I'd co-signed the loan 3 years ago when her credit wasn't good enough. Eventually, I just started paying it myself when she had temporary money troubles. Her car insurance, $320 monthly. Added to my policy because it was cheaper that way, she'd said. That was 5 years ago. Private school tuition for Jake and Sophie, $2,400 per child per month. I started helping 2 years ago when Amanda insisted the public school wasn't good enough. "Just until we get ahead," she'd promised. The electric bill for her house, averaging $200 per month. I added it to my autopay one winter when things were tight. That was 3 years ago. I calculated quickly. $78,000 a year. I'd been giving my sister $78,000 annually, and she told my son she was too broke to drive 40 minutes to his birthday party. My husband, James, came into the office. "Oliver okay?" "He will be. Look at this." I showed him the payments. James let out a low whistle. "I knew you helped Amanda, but I didn't know it was this much." Neither did I until I listed it all. "What are you going to do?" I started clicking through the payment system. Something I should have done a long time ago. Tenth. Each click felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. The Disney passes. The car payment. The insurance. The tuition. The utilities. Every single automatic payment connected to Amanda's life. "You're sure?" James asked quietly. "She lied to our son. She chose a theme park over his birthday. And she posted it on social media where he could see it." I hit the last cancellation. "Yeah. I'm sure." James squeezed my shoulder. "She's going to lose her mind." "Probably." The text came at 7 the next morning. I was pouring coffee when my phone buzzed with Amanda's message. "The passes are declined. We're at the gate and they won't let us in. What's going on? Did you forget to pay?" I sipped my coffee and typed back, "Guess you're really broke now." The phone rang immediately. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined again. Then the text started coming rapid fire. "What is that supposed to mean? This isn't funny. The kids are crying. Did you seriously cancel our passes? Call me right now." I turned off my phone and got Oliver ready for school. James raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He understood. When I turned my phone back on after drop-off, there were 43 missed calls and 62 text messages. Amanda's tone evolved from confusion to anger to panic. The later messages had a different quality. "The car payment bounced. The bank is calling. Insurance company says I'm not covered anymore. The school just called about tuition. What did you do?" I called her then. She answered on the first ring. "What the hell is going on?" Her voice was sharp with panic. "Everything is bouncing. My whole life is falling apart. What did you do?" I stopped paying for your life. Silence. Then, what are you talking about? The Disney passes I've paid for every year. The car payment I've made for 3 years. The insurance I've covered for 5. The tuition, the electric bill. All of it. I canceled everything. You can't do that. We have a deal. We never had a deal, Amanda. You had needs and I helped. Then the helping became expected. Then expected became entitlement. And then you told my son you were too broke to come to his birthday while spending the day at a theme park I paid for. That's not fair. We didn't plan that Disney trip. It was spontaneous. You planned it enough to coordinate matching shirts. I don't have to explain my decisions to you. You're right. You don't. And I don't have to fund them anymore. Do you have any idea how much you just screwed up my life? Jake and Sophie will be expelled if I don't pay their tuition. The bank will repossess my car. We'll lose our insurance. How am I supposed to manage this? The same way everyone else does, with the money you and Derek earn. Derek doesn't make enough to cover all this. Then you've been living beyond your means. That's not my problem to solve. I'm your sister. And Oliver is your nephew. He made goodie bags for your kids. He watched the door waiting for them. Then he saw photos of them at Disney after you told him you couldn't afford to come. My voice stayed level, but I felt the weight of years behind my words. You taught me something important yesterday, Amanda. You taught me that you value theme parks more than family. So I'm done funding the theme parks. This is about more than one birthday party. You're punishing me for one mistake. No. This is about years of taking advantage. The birthday party was just the moment I finally saw it clearly. He was crying now. Please. I'll apologize to Oliver. We'll make it up to him. Just don't do this. I can't afford my life without your help. Then change your life. That's easy for you to say. You're rich. I'm comfortable because I live within my means. You could be too if you stopped trying to look wealthy. So this is about judging my choices? No. This is about not funding them anymore. Mom would be so disappointed in you right now. Actually laughed. Mom would be disappointed that I enabled you for this long. She raised us to be independent, not to use each other as ATMs. I'm going to lose everything. You're going to learn to budget. There's a difference. She hung up on me. Within an hour, my phone started ringing with other family members. My Aunt Karen, my cousin Beth, and finally my mother. Mom was direct. Amanda called me in tears. She says you've cut her off financially. That's accurate. She says she'll lose her house. She won't. Derek makes $90,000 a year. They can afford their mortgage. They just can't afford their mortgage plus private school, plus luxury cars, plus Disney passes, plus living like they make $200,000. How much were you giving her? $78,000 a year. Mom was quiet for a long moment. I didn't realize it was that much. Neither did I until I added it up. What happened? I told her about Oliver's birthday. About the lie. About the Instagram post. About my son's tears. Oh, Amanda, Mom sighed. She always did have more pride than sense. I'm done enabling it. Good. She needs to learn this lesson. I'm sorry it took hurting Oliver for you to see it, but I'm glad you finally did. You're not mad. Honey, I'm proud of you. I've watched you let Amanda use you for years. I kept hoping you'd set a boundary. This was overdue. The relief I felt at my mother's words surprised me. I'd been braced for criticism, for being told family helps family, for pressure to restore the payments. Over the next 2 weeks, Amanda's life rearranged itself. She pulled the twins out of private school and enrolled them in the excellent public school 3 blocks from her house. She traded her luxury SUV for a certified used Honda. She canceled the premium cable package and the meal kit delivery service. She started packing lunches instead of eating out. Derek called me once. I didn't know how much you were paying. Amanda told me her bonus covered most of it. I'm embarrassed and sorry we took advantage. Did you know about Oliver's birthday? Not until after. When I saw the photos she posted, I asked why we weren't at the party. She said you told her it was okay to miss it. Make sure she doesn't become that person. I'm working on it. We're in counseling now. I almost felt bad for Amanda then. Almost. But I thought about Oliver's face and the sympathy faded. 3 weeks after the cancellations, Amanda showed up at my house. She looked different, tired, older, less polished. She was wearing Target jeans instead of designer labels. Can we talk? She asked. I let her in, made coffee and waited. I've been thinking a lot about why I did what I did. The lying, the using you. I talked to a therapist. And she said I was living a fantasy life. Playing pretend wealthy. Using your money to maintain an image that wasn't real. Amanda's hands shook around her coffee mug. I forgot what actually mattered. Like showing up for your nephew's birthday. Like that. Among many other things. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Oliver made goodie bags for my kids. He waited for them. And I was posting photos from a theme park I didn't even pay for. What kind of person does that? The kind who needs to make different choices. I know. I'm making them. We're living on Derek's actual salary now. It's tight, but it's real. The kids adjusted to public school faster than I expected. I sold half my wardrobe on Poshmark. She laughed bitterly. Turns out designer clothes don't mean much when you can't afford groceries. You can afford groceries, Amanda. You just can't afford organic imported groceries delivered to your door. Fair point. She set down her mug. I'm not here to ask for money. I need you to know that. I'm here to apologize. To Oliver first, if you let me see him. I used you. I lied to you. I took advantage of your generosity and never once said thank you. I'm so sorry. I studied my sister. This version of her, stripped of pretense and pride, was someone I barely recognized. Someone I might actually like. Oliver's at school. He gets home at 3:30. Can I come back then? Yes. She came back that afternoon. Oliver was wary at first, but Amanda knelt down to his level and apologized. Really apologized. She explained that she'd made bad choices and hurt him and that she was sorry. She gave him a small wrapped present. A book about space that I knew came from the public library's used sale based on the stamp inside. It's not much, she told him. But I remembered you like space. And I wanted to give you something that actually came from me, not from someone else's money. Oliver hugged her. Kids are better at forgiveness than adults. After he ran off to read, Amanda stood to leave. Thank you for that, I said. I should have done it 3 weeks ago. But I had to stop being angry first. Stop feeling like a victim. Start taking responsibility. He paused at the door. You were right to cut me off. It was the only way I was going to learn. I'm not happy about it, but I'm grateful for it. Does that make sense? It does. Can we rebuild? Not the money thing. Just the sister thing. We can try. She nodded and left. I watched her drive away in her sensible used Honda, headed back to her normal life in her normal house where her kids attended normal public school. That evening, Oliver asked if Jake and Sophie could come over sometime to play. I'll ask Aunt Amanda, I said. Do you think she'll say yes? I think she will. He smiled and went back to his space book. I sat there thinking about boundaries and family, about the difference between helping and enabling, about how sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop protecting people from the consequences of their choices. My laptop sat on the counter, the financial management system still open. $78,000 a year that would now stay in my accounts. Money for Oliver's college or our retirement or simply security. But more valuable than the money was the lesson. For Amanda, who learned she could survive without the fantasy. For Oliver, who learned that people's worth wasn't measured by possessions. And for me, who learned that boundaries weren't cruel, they were necessary. Sometimes love looks like saying no. Sometimes family means letting people struggle so they can learn to stand on their own. The call came at 2 in the afternoon. St. Mary's Hospital, the nurse said. My son Daniel had fallen down a staircase at my sister's house. He was conscious but in pain. They were running tests. I drove there with my hands steady on the wheel, my breathing controlled. Years of training had taught me how to compartmentalize, how to function when adrenaline wanted to take over, how to think clearly when emotions screamed for attention. Daniel was 12 years old. Bright, curious, passionate about science. Last week he'd won first place at the regional science fair with his project on renewable energy storage. His cousin Tyler, my sister's son, had placed fourth with a volcano model. An original. Exactly what you'd expect from a kid whose father did half the work and still couldn't make it interesting. My brother-in-law Marcus had been furious at the awards ceremony. He'd stood there in his expensive suit, watching Daniel receive the trophy and scholarship money, and I'd seen something ugly cross his face. But I'd dismissed it. Marcus was a cardiac surgeon, respected and wealthy. Surely he wouldn't punish a child over a middle school competition. I was wrong. Daniel lay in the hospital bed, his left arm in a temporary splint, bruises already darkening on his ribs. When the nurse stepped out, he looked at me with tears streaming down his face. "Dad," he whispered. Uncle Marcus pushed me. I pulled a chair close and took his uninjured hand. "Tell me exactly what happened." "I went to their house after school like always. Aunt Lindsay was at her book club. Tyler was upstairs playing video games. Uncle Marcus said he wanted to talk to me about the science fair." Daniel's voice shook. "We were at the top of the stairs. He said I'd embarrassed Tyler. Made him look stupid. That I should have let Tyler win because he's family." "What did you say?" "I said I worked really hard on my project. That it wasn't fair to lose on purpose." Daniel winced as he shifted. He got really angry. Said I was disrespectful. Then he put his hand on my chest and pushed hard. I fell backwards down the whole staircase. Did anyone else see this happen? No. Tyler's room is on the other side of the house with the door closed. Uncle Marcus called 911 and told them I tripped. He kept saying it over and over while we waited for the ambulance. "You tripped, Daniel. You lost your balance. That's what happened." I squeezed his hand gently. "You're safe now. The doctors are going to take care of you and I'm going to handle Uncle Marcus." He said if I told anyone what really happened, no one would believe me. That he's a doctor and you're just a probation officer. Just a probation officer. That's what my family had always thought. My sister Lindsay married Marcus 10 years ago when he was a rising star in cardiothoracic surgery. Big house. Luxury cars. Country club membership. She'd looked at my modest salary and small apartment with something like pity. At family gatherings, Marcus dominated conversations, talking about his surgeries, his golf handicap, his investment portfolio. I let him talk. Let everyone assume I was the less successful sibling. What they didn't know was that probation officer was my cover position. My real job was with the Department of Justice, working in the Office of Professional Responsibility. I investigated misconduct by federal employees and licensed professionals. Doctors, lawyers, government officials. People who abused their positions of trust. I had security clearance 3 levels above what most people knew existed. My recommendations could end careers. My testimony had sent corrupt professionals to prison. And I had something else Marcus didn't know about. 6 months ago, I'd been copied on a confidential complaint filed with the state medical board. A nurse at Marcus's hospital had reported him for falsifying patient records to cover up a surgical error that caused complications. The board had opened an investigation but hadn't taken action yet. They were building their case quietly, waiting for more evidence. I'd been tracking it as part of a larger federal investigation into healthcare fraud at that hospital system. The orthopedic surgeon came in and explained that Daniel had a fractured radius, 2 cracked ribs and severe bruising. Nothing life-threatening but painful. He'd need a cast for 6 weeks and restricted activity. The doctor asked routine questions about how the fall happened. I told him we'd discuss the details with police and his expression shifted slightly. He made careful notes in Daniel's chart. After they set Daniel's arm and admitted him for overnight observation, I stepped into the hallway and made my phone call. Not to 911. Not to local police. To my direct supervisor at the Department of Justice. "I need to report a federal offense," I said. "Assault on a minor by a licensed medical professional. And I'm formally requesting that we move forward with the existing investigation into Dr. Marcus." I stopped. I had used chin. I pulled out my phone and looked at my sister's last text. Marcus Reynolds. My brother-in-law was Marcus Reynolds. Marcus Reynolds, I corrected. There's an active medical board complaint. I have a victim willing to testify about assault. I'm requesting immediate coordination with state medical licensing and local law enforcement. My supervisor was quiet for 3 seconds. Then, "Is the victim your son?" "Yes." "Are you certain you want to handle this officially? Once we start, it won't stop." "I'm certain. I'll make the calls. Expect the state investigators within 2 hours." I returned to Daniel's room. He was drowsy from pain medication, watching cartoons with glazed eyes. I sat beside his bed and waited. My phone buzzed 90 minutes later. 3 people were in the hospital administrator's office waiting to speak with me. I kissed Daniel's forehead and told him I'd be back soon. The meeting was efficient. A detective from the Special Victims Unit, an investigator from the State Medical Board, and a federal prosecutor I'd worked with on previous cases. They asked detailed questions. I provided detailed answers. Daniel's statement, the suspicious circumstances, the pattern of Marcus's behavior at the science fair, his documented history of ego problems that had been flagged but not acted upon. The medical board investigator pulled out a file. We've been looking at Dr. Reynolds for 6 months. We have testimony from 3 nurses about him altering records and intimidating staff. We didn't have enough for an immediate suspension, but assault on a minor changes everything. We can issue an emergency order tonight. The detective added, if your son's statement holds up and given the injuries, we have grounds for arrest. Felony assault on a child. If convicted, he's looking at 2 to 5 years and permanent loss of his medical license. The prosecutor leaned forward. The hospital has been under federal review for fraud. Dr. Reynolds is named in that investigation. This gives us leverage to flip witnesses who've been protecting him. Are you prepared for your family to know your actual position? They're going to find out anyway. Yes. They are. I went back to Daniel's room. My phone started ringing at 8 that evening. First my sister Lindsay, hysterical, then my mother, then Lindsay again. I let them all go to voicemail. At 9, 2 uniformed officers walked past Daniel's room toward the elevator. I knew where they were going. Marcus worked late most nights, performing surgeries or reviewing cases in his office at the hospital. He was probably still in the building 4 floors up in the surgical wing, completely unaware that his life was about to collapse. The next morning, Daniel was discharged. I took him home and settled him on the couch with his pain medication and strict instructions to rest. Then I finally listened to the voicemails. Lindsay's first message, what did you tell the police? They arrested Marcus at the hospital last night. This is insane. Daniel tripped. Why are you doing this to us? My mother's message, please call me. Your sister is devastated. Surely we can work this out as a family without involving authorities. Lindsay's second message, recorded at 3 in the morning, they suspended his medical license. His lawyer says you're not actually a probation officer, that you work for the Department of Justice. Why didn't you ever tell me? Marcus said you've been investigating him. This is about revenge because he's more successful than you. I deleted them all. The news broke locally within 48 hours. Prominent cardiac surgeon arrested for child assault and under investigation for medical fraud. The hospital placed him on immediate unpaid leave pending the outcome of criminal charges. The medical board announced the emergency suspension of his license. My phone rang constantly. I ignored everyone except the prosecutor, who needed Daniel's formal statement, and the victim advocate assigned to help him process the trauma. On the 3rd day, Lindsay showed up at my apartment. She looked destroyed, no makeup, unwashed hair, wearing yoga pants and a wrinkled t-shirt. This was not the polished country club wife I'd known for a decade. Can I come in? She asked. No. Daniel's resting and doesn't need the stress. He's my nephew. I love him. Your husband assaulted him and you called me a liar. She flinched. I didn't know. Marcus said. Daniel tripped. He was so convincing. He's always so convincing. Her voice broke. The lawyer told me about the nurse's complaints, the falsified records. He said you've been investigating the hospital for months. That you have security clearance and authority I didn't know existed. I do my job quietly. That's how it works. Why didn't you tell me what you really do? Would it have mattered? You and Marcus looked down on me for years. You pitted me. You thought I was less than because I didn't have the big house and the expensive car. I never thought that. Yes, you did. And you married someone who thought hurting my child was acceptable because his ego couldn't handle losing a middle school science fair. I kept my voice level, professional. Daniel has a fractured arm and cracked ribs because your husband's pride mattered more than a child's safety. What happens now? Marcus goes to trial. If convicted, he serves time and loses his medical license permanently. The federal case moves forward. His involvement in the hospital fraud scheme gets exposed. He'll likely face additional charges. He'll lose everything. Yes. He will. Can't you stop it? Drop the charges? You have that power, don't you? I don't. Once the wheels are in motion, they don't stop. And even if I could, I wouldn't. He assaulted my son and then tried to cover it up. He's been falsifying medical records and potentially harming patients. These are the consequences of his choices. Lindsay stood there for a long moment, tears running down her face. I'm filing for divorce. I can't be married to someone who would hurt a child. Tyler is traumatized. He heard Marcus on the phone with the lawyer, heard him admitting it was intentional. That he taught Daniel a lesson about respect. Tyler should talk to the victim advocate. There's counseling available for family members. Will Daniel ever forgive us? That's not for me to answer. Right now, my focus is on his physical and emotional recovery. She nodded and left. I watched her walk to her car, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, not anger. Just the calm certainty that I'd done exactly what needed to be done. The trial happened 4 months later. Marcus's expensive lawyers tried everything. Character witnesses testified about his brilliance as a surgeon. His mother cried on the stand about what a good son he was. His attorney argued that it was a misunderstanding, that Marcus had merely gestured and Daniel had lost his balance. Then Daniel testified. Clear-eyed and steady, he described exactly what happened. The prosecutor presented the medical evidence. The angle of the fracture consistent with a hard fall, the bruising pattern on his chest matching the size and shape of an adult hand, the hospital's security footage showing Marcus's demeanor before and after, the aggressive, agitated body language. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Marcus received 4 years in prison and permanent revocation of his medical license. The federal fraud case added another 18 months and significant fines. His reputation was destroyed. His career was over. His marriage was dissolved. His son Tyler, now living with Lindsay in a small apartment, refused to speak to him. I never raised my voice. Never showed anger or satisfaction. I simply let the system work the way it was designed to work. Justice wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. Daniel's arm healed. The nightmares faded with therapy. He went back to school and continued excelling in science. He never stopped being kind, never let what happened turn him cruel or bitter. That made me prouder than any trophy ever could. 6 months after the sentencing, Daniel asked me, "Do you think Uncle Marcus understands why he lost everything?" Probably not. Men like that rarely do. I felt bad at first. For Tyler, for Aunt Lindsay. But then I realized something. He looked at me seriously. You taught me that actions have consequences. That being smart or rich or important doesn't mean you get to hurt people. Uncle Marcus forgot that. He did. You didn't forget though. Even when everyone thought you were just a probation officer. Especially then, I said. The best way to have power is to never need to prove you have it. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. Then he went back to his homework, already working on his next science fair project. This one about the physics of falling objects and the forces involved in impacts. He said it helped him understand what happened to his body. His therapist said it was a healthy way to process trauma, taking something terrible and turning it into knowledge. I watched him work, his left arm fully healed, his mind sharp and curious and untouched by his uncle's cruelty. Marcus had tried to teach Daniel a lesson about respect. Instead, he taught him something far more valuable about justice, integrity, and the quiet power of people who don't need to announce their authority. One phone call had ended Marcus's career, his freedom, his family, his future. But I'd never raised my voice. Never made threats. Never needed to. The system I served had done exactly what it was designed to do. And that was the most powerful lesson of all. It happened at my brother David's house during Sunday dinner. A casual family gathering, nothing special. 20 people scattered between the kitchen, dining room, and back patio. Adults drinking wine and catching up while the kids ran around playing. My daughter Emma was 7 years old. Shy, sweet, the kind of kid who colored pictures for people and left them as surprises. She'd brought a drawing she'd made for my niece Brittany, who was 15. I was in the kitchen with my mother when I heard laughter from the dining room. The kind of laughter that has an edge to it. The kind that makes you pay attention. I walked to the doorway and saw Emma standing there holding her plate, looking confused. Brittany and her 2 neighborhood friends were sitting at the dining table. The kids' table, supposedly, though Brittany had declared herself too old for the children's table and had claimed it for her friend group instead. I said, "You can't sit here," Brittany was telling Emma. "This table is for actual people, not little babies." "I just want to eat dinner," Emma said quietly, her voice small. Then go eat in the garage where the pets belong. Brittany waved her hand dismissively. That's where we put things that don't matter. The two other girls laughed. So did my brother David, who was standing right there getting another beer from the refrigerator. My uncle Richard chuckled from the patio doorway. My sister-in-law Jennifer smiled and shook her head like it was all very amusing. Emma looked around at the adults, waiting for someone to tell Brittany she was wrong. Waiting for someone to protect her. No one did. Go on, Brittany said. The garage is through there. I watched my 7-year-old daughter walk through the kitchen toward the garage door, carrying her plate of food and the drawing she'd made for her cousin. She looked back once, her eyes finding mine. I saw the confusion in her face. The hurt. The question, why isn't anyone stopping this? I pulled out my phone and followed her. The garage was cold and smelled like motor oil and grass clippings. Emma had set her plate down on David's workbench, next to a pile of tools and a bag of fertilizer. He was trying not to cry. I took several photos. Emma sitting on the concrete floor next to the lawnmower holding her plate. The workbench with her dinner next to the gardening supplies. A wider shot showing the garage in context with the door to the warm house visible in the background. Then I went back inside and took one more photo. The dining room full of adults talking and laughing, none of them concerned about where a 7-year-old had gone. Come on, sweetheart, I said quietly to Emma. We're going home. I gathered our things without explanation. David called after us. Leaving so soon? Yes. Everything okay? No, I said. But we're leaving anyway. Emma cried in the car. Not loud, dramatic crying, but the quiet kind that's somehow worse. The kind where a child is trying to understand what they did wrong. Why did Brittany say I belong in the garage? She asked. Because Brittany was being cruel and the adults let her be cruel. Did I do something bad? No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why did everyone laugh? I didn't have a good answer for that. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that sometimes family members enable cruelty because it's easier than confrontation? That some people matter more in family dynamics than others, and she and I had always been in the category that mattered less? At home I got Emma settled with hot chocolate and her favorite movie. Once she was calm I looked at the photos I'd taken. Clear evidence of what had happened. Visual proof that couldn't be disputed or minimized later. Then I pulled up my banking app and canceled the automatic payment scheduled for the next morning. David's mortgage payment. $4,100 that had been coming from my account every month for the past 6 years. It had started after his divorce. Jennifer was his second wife and the first one had taken half of everything in the settlement. David had called me panicking. He was going to lose the house. Brittany would have to change schools. Could I help just temporarily, just until he got his finances sorted? 6 years. $73,200 per year. $439,200 total. Not to mention the property tax payments I'd quietly handled twice a year. Another $15,000 annually. I'd never asked him to pay me back. He was my brother. Family helps family. That's what we do. Except apparently family also laughs when your daughter is told she belongs in a garage with the pets. The next morning, Monday, my phone buzzed at 8:30. David's text, "Hey, mortgage payment is due today. Just wanted to make sure it went through okay." I attached the photos to a message and typed, "Pets don't pay bills." The phone started ringing within 30 seconds. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined again. Then texts started flooding in. "What are you talking about? Did you cancel the payment? This isn't funny. Call me right now." I waited an hour. Long enough for him to check his bank account and confirm the payment hadn't gone through. Long enough for the reality to set in. Then I called him back. "Jennifer, what the hell is going on? You let your daughter tell mine that she belongs in the garage where the pets belong. Then you laughed about it. So I've decided that since pets don't pay bills, I'm done paying yours." That was just kid stuff. Brittany was joking around. Brittany is 15 years old. Emma is 7. There's no joking around when a teenager humiliates a child and adults stand there laughing. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Emma's fine. Emma cried herself to sleep last night asking me what she did wrong. She's not fine. So you're going to destroy my life over some kid drama? I'm going to stop funding your life after you demonstrated that my daughter's dignity matters less to you than getting a laugh. There's a difference. I can't make this mortgage payment on my own. You know that. Then you should have thought about that before you treated my child like she was worthless. It was one time. One stupid comment from a teenager. It was one time that I watched happen. How many times has Brittany been cruel to Emma when I wasn't there? How many times have you dismissed it or encouraged it or laughed about it? Silence on his end, an answer in itself. The payment is due today, he said finally. Late fees start tomorrow. Then you'd better figure something out. Jennifer, please. Don't do this. Brittany made a mistake. We'll talk to her. She'll apologize to Emma. You had the chance to talk to her yesterday. You chose to laugh instead. We're family. Exactly. We're family. Which means you should have protected Emma like she was your own daughter. But you didn't. So now you get to figure out how family works when the person you've been using decides to stop letting you. He hung up on me. Within an hour, my phone was lighting up with calls from other family members. Mom, Uncle Richard, David's friend Marcus, who apparently heard about the situation. All of them had the same message. I was overreacting, being vindictive, punishing the whole family for one incident. I sent all of them the same photos I'd sent David. The image of Emma sitting in that garage, alone, holding her dinner plate next to a bag of fertilizer while her family ate and laughed inside the house. My mother called back after seeing the photos. I didn't realize, she said quietly. You were there, Mom. I was in the kitchen. I didn't see where Emma went. You heard Brittany tell her to go to the garage. You heard people laughing. I thought they were just teasing. Look at the photo. Does that look like teasing to you? He was crying. I'm so sorry. I should have paid more attention. I should have said something. Yes, you should have. But you didn't. And now David is going to learn that actions have consequences. He'll lose the house. Then he'll lose the house. People live in smaller places all the time. It builds character. Jennifer, he's your brother. And Emma is my daughter. He comes first. Always. David missed the payment that day. And the next month's payment too. By week 3, the bank was sending default notices. He tried to refinance without me as a co-borrower, but his credit wasn't good enough and his income couldn't support the loan amount. He tried to get a personal loan to cover a few months while he figured things out, but no bank would lend him $50,000 unsecured. He put the house on the market 6 weeks after the incident. It sold fast. The market was good and it was a nice property in a decent neighborhood. They cleared about $80,000 after paying off the mortgage and closing costs. David and Jennifer moved to a rental house in a less expensive area. Smaller, older, but adequate. Brittany had to change schools. No more private academy with the good arts program. The public high school was fine, just not prestigious. My mother tried to mediate several times. She'd invite both of us to her house and try to facilitate a conversation. David would apologize for not intervening fast enough. Jennifer would apologize for laughing. Brittany wrote a letter to Emma saying she was sorry for being mean. But none of them could answer the question that mattered. Why did they think it was okay in the first place? We just weren't thinking, David said. That's the problem. You didn't think because you didn't have to think. Emma's feelings were never important enough to defend. That's not true. Then why did everyone laugh when a 15-year-old told a 7-year-old she belongs with the pets? Why did no one stop it? Why did I have to find my daughter eating alone in a garage while you all had a nice family dinner? He didn't have an answer. 3 months after the incident, I took Emma to therapy. She was having nightmares and struggling with social situations at school. The therapist said she'd developed anxiety around family gatherings. It would take time and work to help her feel secure again. I sent David the therapy bills, not asking him to pay them, just making sure he saw the cost of what happened. 6 months later, my mother asked if we could try a family dinner again. Small, just her and Dad and Emma and me. David and his family wouldn't be there. I want Emma to know that some family is safe, Mom said. That not everyone will hurt her. We tried it. Emma was nervous at first, but my mother was patient and kind. She talked to Emma about the drawing she'd brought that day, the one meant for Brittany that never got delivered. She asked if Emma would make her one instead. You matter to me, Grandma told her. Your drawings matter. Your feelings matter. You matter more than any house or any amount of money or keeping the peace. I'm sorry I didn't show you that when I should have. Emma made her a drawing. It was of our family, but it was different from the family portraits she used to draw. This one had just Emma and me and Grandma and Grandpa. The 4 of us. No one else. This is who loves me, Emma explained. And my heart broke a little, but I also felt something like relief. He understood now. She understood that love isn't about blood relation or obligation. It's about who protects you. Who sees you as worthy of protection. A year after the incident, David called me. Not about money, just to talk. Brittany's in therapy too, he said. She's been having a hard time with the move and the new school. The therapist asked her about family dynamics and she talked about that Sunday. About what happened with Emma. Okay. She said she was mean to Emma because Jennifer and I always talked about you like you were less than us. Like you were the one we had to help and support. Like we were doing you a favor. You were doing me a favor? That's how we framed it. Jennifer would say things like, at least we can help your sister out. Or, it's good that we can give her purpose by letting her help us. Like we were being charitable by letting you pay our mortgage. I almost laughed. Almost. You're just realizing this now? The therapist pointed out that Brittany learned from us that you and Emma were less important. That it was okay to treat you badly because we treated you badly, we just did it more subtly. Did you call to tell me this or to apologize? Both, I guess. I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not because I lost the house, though that sucked. But because I treated you like you existed to serve me. And I taught my daughter to do the same thing. And Emma got hurt because of it. Yes. She did. Is there any way to fix this? I don't know, David. Emma's 7 years old and she already knows what it feels like to be treated like she doesn't matter. That's going to stay with her. The question is whether she also learns that people can change and do better. I want to do better. Then do better. Not for my benefit, for Brittany's. Teach her something better than what you taught her before. We hung up. I didn't know if it meant anything, if he'd really change or if it was just words. But I knew that Emma was safe now. That she had people who would protect her. That she understood her worth wasn't determined by people who laughed when she was hurt. The photos from that Sunday stayed on my phone. I looked at them sometimes not to remember the hurt, but to remember the moment I chose my daughter over everything else. The moment I decided that being family wasn't enough if family meant accepting cruelty. Emma was 8 now. She still drew pictures, but she was more careful about who she gave them to. She'd learned discernment the hard way. I wished she hadn't had to learn that lesson so young. But I was grateful she'd learned it while I was still there to show her she deserved better. Sometimes protecting your child means cutting off the money. Sometimes it means cutting off the family. Sometimes love looks like boundaries other people call cruel. But I'd seen cruelty. I'd photographed it. I knew the difference. Every single time I chose Emma. The words came from my 8-year-old niece during dessert. We were sitting around my parents' dining table. 17 people crammed into a space meant for 12. The turkey had been carved, the sides devoured, and my mother was bringing out 3 different pies when Maya said it. Aunt Jennifer, Mom says you're just the leftovers of the family. The table went quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then my sister Christine laughed. A few cousins joined in. My Uncle Tom chuckled into his coffee. My father looked uncomfortable but said nothing. My mother busied herself cutting pie. Maya looked confused by the reaction, clearly not understanding what she'd repeated or why the adults found it funny. She was 8. She just said what she'd heard her mother say at home, probably multiple times, based on how easily the phrase rolled off her tongue. My partner, Sarah, reached for my hand under the table. I squeezed back and stood up calmly. We're going to head out, I said, my voice steady. Oh, come on, Christine said, still smiling. It's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. We have an early morning tomorrow. I walked to the coat closet and pulled out our jackets. Jennifer, stay for pie, my mother said weakly. Thank you for dinner. It was lovely. I kissed her cheek and headed for the door. Sarah followed without a word. We drove home in silence for the first 10 minutes. Then Sarah spoke. I'm so sorry you had to hear that. It's not the first time Christine said something like that. Just the first time she used her daughter to say it. The way everyone laughed made it worse. They always do. It's easier to go along with Christine than to challenge her. Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand again. We'd been together for 3 years. This was her second Thanksgiving with my family, and I could see her reassessing whether there would be a third. The term leftovers had followed me my whole life, though usually more subtly. I was the younger sister by 5 years. The one who came along when my parents thought they were done having children. Christine had been the center of their world before I arrived and disrupted everything. She'd never quite forgiven me for existing. As we grew up, the dynamic solidified. Christine was the golden child. Popular, outgoing, married her college boyfriend at 23 in a wedding that cost $40,000. Had Maya 2 years later. Bought a beautiful house in the suburbs. From the outside, her life looked perfect. I took a different path. I came out as gay at 19, which my parents handled with polite discomfort rather than acceptance. I spent my 20s building my software consulting business instead of settling down. Met Sarah at 32. We lived in a modest condo, drove practical cars, and didn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. What my family didn't know, what Christine especially didn't know, was that I'd been paying her mortgage for the last 6 years. It started during her divorce. Christine's picture-perfect marriage imploded when she was 31. Her husband emptied their joint accounts and disappeared, leaving her with a toddler and a mortgage she couldn't afford on her receptionist's salary. She called me crying, desperate. The bank was threatening foreclosure. I'd helped. Of course I helped. She was my sister and Maya was my niece. I called the mortgage company and worked out an arrangement. I became a co-borrower, which meant the payments could come from my account. Christine said she'd pay me back, just until she got back on her feet. That was 6 years ago. The payments never stopped coming from my account. $4,200 every month. Plus property taxes of $12,000 annually. Plus homeowners insurance of $3,000 yearly. $58,400 per year. $350,400 total over 6 years. Christine never paid me back a single dollar. After the first year, she stopped mentioning it entirely. I don't think she even looked at her mortgage statements anymore. They came to my address since I was the co-borrower handling the payments. As far as she knew, the mortgage just somehow got paid every month. She remarried 2 years ago to a man named Kevin who worked in pharmaceutical sales. They took vacations to Mexico and renovated the kitchen. Christine wore designer clothes and drove a new SUV. At family gatherings, she talked about her successful life, her beautiful home, her perfect family. And she called me the leftovers. The call came 3 days after Thanksgiving, Sunday afternoon. I was working on a client project when my phone rang. Christine's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," she said, her tone casual. "I'm looking at the calendar and the mortgage payment is due on the 1st. Just wanted to make sure everything's set up for this month." I'd been waiting for this call. I'd canceled the automatic payment on Thursday night, right after Sarah and I got home from dinner. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice neutral, "leftovers don't pay bills." Silence. "What?" "You heard me. Jennifer, what are you talking about? Is the payment set up or not?" "It's not. I canceled it Thursday night." "You canceled it? Why would you do that?" Her voice was rising. "Because according to you, I'm just the leftovers of the family. And leftovers don't pay $58,000 a year to keep their sister in a house she can't actually afford." More silence. I could hear her breathing. "Wait. You've been paying my mortgage. For 6 years. Every month. Plus property taxes and insurance." I thought the bank worked out some kind of program. After the divorce. The program was me. I co-signed and took over the payments. You said you'd pay me back once you got stable. That was 6 years ago. I didn't realize you were still paying. I thought maybe it was just the first year and then I took over, or the bank worked something out, or... Her voice trailed off. "You never asked. You never looked at a statement. You just enjoyed living in a house you couldn't afford while telling your daughter I'm the leftovers of the family." That was a joke. Maya shouldn't have repeated it. Kids say everything. She repeated what you taught her. That I'm less than. That I'm unwanted. That I'm the scraps. My voice stayed level, but I felt years of hurt behind every word. And the whole family laughed. So clearly they agree. "Jennifer, come on. You can't just stop paying my mortgage. I have a child. I have a home. You have a home you can't afford. And Kevin has a good job. Between your income and his, you can cover the mortgage yourselves. It'll be tight, but that's what budgets are for. But the payment is due in 3 days. Then you should make arrangements to pay it. I don't have $4,000 just sitting around. That's not my problem anymore. I've paid $350,000 over 6 years. I'm done. This is insane. You're going to ruin my life over a stupid comment." "No, Christine. I'm going to stop funding your life after you made it clear what you think of me. There's a difference. She hung up on me. I set down the phone and went back to work. The calls started within an hour. First my mother, then my father, then Uncle Tom. Christine had told them her version. I was vindicatively destroying her life over a harmless joke. I was putting my niece's home at risk. I was being unreasonable and cruel. I told them all the same thing. 6 years. 58,000 per year. 350,000 total. Not a word of gratitude. Not a single repayment. And then teaching her daughter to call me leftovers while the family laughed. My mother sighed. I didn't know you were paying her mortgage. Christine didn't want anyone to know. It would ruin the image of her perfect life. But Maya. Think about Maya. I am thinking about Maya. She's learning that she can treat people terribly and still expect them to fund her lifestyle. That's not a lesson I want to reinforce. Your sister needs help. She needs to learn to live within her means. Kevin makes $90,000 a year. Christine makes $35,000. They can afford a $4,000 mortgage if they cut the vacations and the designer clothes and the new cars. They just don't want to. My father called next. His approach was more direct. You're really going to do this? Let your sister lose her house. I'm going to stop paying for a house that isn't mine while being treated like I'm worthless. She apologized for the comment. No, she didn't. She said it was a joke and I'm too sensitive. What do you want from her? Nothing. That's the point. I don't want anything. I'm just done giving. He didn't have a response to that. The mortgage payment came due on December 1st. Christine didn't make it. I knew because the mortgage company sent me notifications as a co-borrower. They called Christine directly, but she apparently didn't answer or couldn't come up with the money. By December 5th she called me again. They're charging late fees. My credit is going to be destroyed. Then make the payment. I can't. I don't have it. Kevin's paycheck goes to his child support and car payment. My paycheck covers groceries and utilities. We don't have an extra $4,000 lying around. Sell something. Cancel your vacation. Return the clothes. I don't know, Christine. Figure it out like every other adult who has to pay their bills. You're really going to let this happen? I'm really going to stop preventing it from happening. There's a difference. I could lose my house. You could. Or you could make hard choices. Downsize. Get a roommate. Find a better paying job. Live somewhere affordable. I paused. You have options. You just don't like them. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just not doing everything for you anymore. She hung up again. By mid-December, Christine and Kevin had put the house on the market. They couldn't afford to keep it without my payments, and they couldn't qualify for a refinance without me as a co-borrower. The house sold quickly. It was a seller's market, and the place was in good condition thanks to all those renovations they'd done with money they should have been saving for their mortgage. They moved into a smaller house in a less prestigious neighborhood. Still nice, still safe, but not the showcase property Christine had been using to prove her success. They couldn't afford private lessons for Maya anymore or the annual beach vacation. Christine had to buy clothes at Target instead of Nordstrom. Christmas was awkward. My parents hosted and Christine barely spoke to me. Kevin seemed embarrassed but cordial. Maya asked me quietly if I was mad at her. No, sweetie. I'm not mad at you. You didn't do anything wrong. Mom said you stopped helping us because I said the leftovers thing. I knelt down to her level. Your mom said something that hurt my feelings and you repeated it because you didn't know better. That's not your fault. But grown-ups have to be responsible for their choices. Your mom made choices about money that meant she needed my help. Then she was unkind to me. So I stopped helping. That's about the grown-ups, not about you. Are you still my aunt? Always. No matter what. She hugged me and I felt some of the tightness in my chest ease. Whatever else happened, I didn't want Maya to carry guilt for her mother's words. In March, 4 months after the incident, Christine called me. Not about money. Not about the house. Just a talk. I'm in therapy, she said. Working through some stuff. That's good. The therapist asked me why I called you the leftovers. I said it was just a joke, but she pushed me on it. Made me really think about it. Christine's voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. I think I've been jealous of you for a long time. Jealous? Of me? You're so self-sufficient. You built your own business. You found Sarah and you're happy. You don't care what anyone thinks. I've spent my whole life trying to prove I'm successful and worthy and perfect. And you just exist without needing that validation. I didn't know what to say. And then I found out you've been paying my mortgage for 6 years. That the house I was so proud of, that I used to show off my success, was actually evidence that I couldn't support myself. That my little sister, the leftover, was the one holding my life together. She laughed bitterly. The therapist said I was projecting my own fears onto you. That calling you the leftovers was really about how I felt about myself. Christine, I didn't help you to hold it over you. I know. Which makes it worse. You helped because that's who you are. And I repaid you by being cruel. He was crying now. I'm so sorry. For the comment, for Maya repeating it, for taking your money and never acknowledging it, for everything. You deserved so much better from me. Thank you for saying that. I don't expect you to start helping again. We're managing. It's tight but we're managing. Kevin picked up extra shifts. I'm looking for a better paying position. We're actually living within our budget for the first time in years. How does that feel? Stressful. But also kind of freeing. Like I don't have to pretend anymore. We talked for another 20 minutes. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet. But it was honest. Maybe the most honest conversation we'd ever had. Sarah found me after the call and saw the tears on my face. You okay? Yeah. Christine apologized. Actually apologized. Think she means it? I think she's starting to understand some things. Whether she changes, that's up to her. Sarah pulled me close. You did the right thing. Setting that boundary. It didn't feel right at the time. It just felt necessary. Sometimes those are the same thing. I thought about that. About boundaries and family and the difference between helping and enabling. About being called the leftovers while being the person who kept everything together. Maybe being the leftovers wasn't the insult Christine thought it was. Leftovers were what sustained you after the feast was over. They were the practical, necessary parts that kept you fed when the celebration ended. They were what you returned to when the show was finished. I'd spent my life being the leftover, the one who showed up, did the work, asked for nothing and kept going. Maybe it was time to reclaim that word. To own it as something other than an insult. Because at the end of the day, when everyone else's performance was over, the leftovers were what remained. Thought. Sustaining. And that was enough.